Welcome to the AVAIL podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. My name is Virgil Sierra, and today we're sitting down with Dr. Jason Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy serves as one of the executive pastors of Visalia First and also as provost of Catalyst Bible College in Visalia, California. In this episode, Dr. Kennedy will unpack the heart and vision of Catalyst Bible College, the importance of education for ministers, and his passion for equipping more ministry leaders with solid theological foundation. So, lean in, leaders, and let's get started. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the AVAIL podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. I'm your host, Virgil Sierra, lead pastor of Vertical Church, aka Iglesia Vertical in South Florida, where we are one church, two languages. And today we are sitting down with an amazing leader. He's a pastor. I think you're going to hear a lot about the passion in his heart for Christian education and theological foundation. We're talking about Dr. Jason Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy, how does it feel to be here on the AVAIL podcast?
Oh man, Virgil, it's so good. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here and just to get to talk about leadership and education with not only you, but hundreds, maybe thousands of pastors.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Yeah, we're so thankful to have you here. I'm excited. When I heard about Catalyst Bible College, when I heard about just a new breeding ground for ministers, pastors, ministry leaders, people who have a passion for God, a passion for his kingdom, and a passion for shepherding and leading people. Man, it just fires me up. Before we jump into how Catalyst Bible College, kind of the heart behind it, why it got started, why you're a part of it, can you just share a little bit about your background so our AVAIL audience can get to know you?
Yeah, so I'm 48 years old, which doesn't seem real to me, but I am. I'm 48 and I've been in ministry for about 25 years. I've done everything from youth pastor, children's pastor, executive pastor. I've helped with the church plant. I've been a senior pastor, and now I'm doing the education stuff. So I've had a lot of experiences in ministry, some great, some not so great, but all of them have been learning experiences. I have two daughters. I've one that 367 days from today will graduate from high school, and I have another one that's 14. And I've been married to my wife for 21 years, who she herself is successful in her own right. She's a medical doctor and does family medicine. So we are a busy, busy family living in California, but love the call that God's put on our heart.
I love it. It's, when you were sharing with me a little bit about your journey, I would honestly say, I would love to have somebody like you in my life on my team, because you have been in so many various roles of ministry, from kids pastor, and youth pastor, all the way up to senior pastor. You've helped plant churches. You've been in the executive role. You've been in that second chair leadership role. And I'm sure your perspective is very well rounded. Now, with that being said,
what I joke, Virgil, is either I'm good at my job or I'm really not good at my job, and I've just had a lot of different hats. I'm not sure what the case is, but I've done a lot, and I appreciate the experience that I've had over the years.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I used to play baseball back in the day, and the utility players, like anywhere you put a utility player, they can make it happen. In fact, they could rock it and build somebody up. It seems to me like that's the kind of person you are. Anywhere you are planted, you will flourish and you will help others flourish. I'd love to hear just a little bit about the heart behind Catalyst Bible College and your role, as this is really the beginning season of it.
Yeah, so my title, I have a few titles here. I'm one of the executive pastors at a large church in California. With that, I'm also the provost and day-to-day director of Catalyst Bible College. And so really, my passion for academics kind of came late in life. I was in my late 20s. I was one of those guys that when you graduated Bible college, who needs education? I just need to preach Jesus. And I realized after doing that for a while that we live in more complex times. And so I started getting my master's degree. I got that out of the way. I started my journey towards a master's of divinity. I got an equivalency with that, which was granted to me by the same institution, George Fox, that gave me my doctorate. And so I had a real passion, and I think the passion kind of came from just seeing a lack of theology in the pulpits.
Mm,
We do great, we do really good training people to be leaders, but we're not really training them great to be thought leaders or theological thought
mm,
leaders. And so that's kind of been a passion of mine for the last 10 plus years, where I've really wanted to focus on theology. I think a good pastor has to know how to rightly handle the word of truth. And when I look at the landscape across the nation when it comes to churches, we always complain about the lack of biblical literacy in our congregations.
yeah.
Well, I really believe that starts in the pulpit. And if we're not giving them enough of the word, then we can't expect them to be literate within the word. So, all those things, as well as seeing how difficult it is to hire different pastors and youth pastors and children's pastors and beyond. I'm hearing it all across the country. We have a leadership pipeline crisis
Mm.
within not just our denomination, which is the Assemblies of God, but across the nation, we have a leadership pipeline problem. And unless we fix that problem, unless we get serious about fixing that problem, it's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder. And so we have a desire to raise up leaders who are not just good leaders, but good thought leaders and good with theology so that they can navigate the complex world that we live in today.
Yeah, I think that's so relevant, especially in a world that's getting more confused day by day,
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
culture that is so separated from godly principles and godly truth. I love the fact that you guys have this initiative. Now, I would like to kind of re-emphasize where you guys are located and who you're serving, and
Yeah.
what about people that are in other parts of the states?
Yeah, so we are in the Central Valley of California. So we're kind of the breadbasket of the nation. We have a lot of farming, lot of agriculture here in the valley. We're about 2.5 hours north of Los Angeles and about 3 hours southeast of San Francisco. So we're kind of in the middle part of the state of California. We are partnered with Vanguard University. They actually prop up our accreditation. Many of the classes that I dare say all, if not most of the classes, come from Vanguard. We teach a good part of them here. But Vanguard University is a 100-year-old institution founded by the Assemblies of God in Southern California and Costa Mesa. And so we are working not just to train students in California, we have the ability to train students all over the nation through technology. So students can log in, take classes with us, and get an accredited degree from Vanguard University, which is a regionally accredited degree, which means it would transfer anywhere in the country. Vanguard has been a great, great partner for us.
That's awesome. I love it. Now, one of the things you were sharing with me were some of the values, some of the kind of the core foundational values of Catalyst Bible College. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have four values that we developed. They are academic, affordable, networked, and missional. Academic, I just spoke about it a few minutes ago. A lot of times when people connect to a college that may be in the church, they're always dealing with parents. They're always wondering about their accreditation. Is this a real college? Is this a real school? No,
Hmm.
when you come to Catalyst Bible College, you are getting a degree from an institution that has stood since 1922, 1921. So, and it's accredited in the state of California and
Mm.
again, would transfer anywhere. The other thing that I need to point out is that we're highly affordable. Our goal is to make Catalyst Bible College as cheap as possible. We say we want to get our students out close to debt free.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean debt free. We believe that students need to have skin in the game,
Mm.
but we want to make sure that you can get a quality, affordable education when you come to Catalyst Bible College. If you go to other Christian institutions, private Christian institutions, you're going to pay somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000 for a 4-year degree. What we're offering is, with the help with Vanguard, we're offering our 4-year degree program in theology for $35,000.
Wow.
That's the tuition for 4 years, not 35,000 per year, but 35,000 total. The
Wow.
reason we do this, and we work hard with Vanguard and other partners to provide scholarships and things like that to even drive down the costs. But the reason we do this is because we believe a lot of students are not able to follow the call of God on their life because of their debt load.
Right.
So my wife's a medical doctor. I'd mentioned that, and she has medical school loans, and I know exactly what borrowing $200,000 will impact. Will have an impact on your life. It's about $1,500 a month. Well, if you come out of ministry, come out of college, and your first job in ministry is paying you $40,000, then $18,000 a year goes to service the debt, and you have to figure out how to live on the other $22,000. That's an unsustainable model. It's not going to work, and that's why a lot of students get out into ministry. They have to work a secular job. The
Right.
secular money starts getting too good, and so they abandon the call of God on their life. So what we want to do is make it as affordable as possible so that you can follow the call of God on your life. The third thing we want is networked. We're setting up sites around the country with the help of our partnerships. And we want to recreate a ministry guild, because ministry is not just what you know, it's also who you know. I'm a product of the relationships that I've built over the last 25 years. Virgil, I'm sure you are too. There are people that we were connected to relationally that open doors for us. So we want to make sure that students are connected with people all around the nation. We do that by having internships around the country. We do that by having network sites. We do that by having combined experiences with our network sites so that students can get to know other people across the country and develop relationships. And then fourthly, we want to be missional. The core of what we do is missional.
Yeah.
We want students, the thing I say to students is we believe that you are called as you're doing. So we kind of built it really off of my wife's medical school training, where the last 2 years of medical school, she did rounds in different parts of medical life. So she did a surgical round, OBGYN round, on and on it goes. And that allowed her to go, this is what I really want to do. Well, we do the same thing with our practicums. We want them to experience different aspects of the church, and we want to put them on the mission field too. Perhaps God's calling them to serve in a different country or different continent. And so we want to expose students to as much as possible so that when you hire them out of Catalyst Bible College, you find a student who is well-rounded, who is networked, who doesn't have a lot of debt, and who has fantastic theological training. Those are our 4 values at Catalyst.
I love that. I love that. It seems like there's not only a good balance, but a vision towards the future. Now here's a question which I'm sure you got a lot to say about, Dr. Kennedy. Yeah. Specifically, the importance of education for ministers. I think you're going to find people on I guess every side of the spectrum, and maybe there could be valid points of, hey, sometimes you just got to go. And maybe other people are like, no, you have to have certain degrees. I'm sure there's a little bit of truth in there, mixed in, going in every direction. But there's something important about truly educated, theologically based and founded leaders. Talk to us about your heart and what you see in the importance for this.
Yeah, so I'll say this. I got elected to my church in Dallas the day I started my doctoral journey. And I can tell you that when I walked into the room and led a group of men, and my board were COOs and CFOs and CEOs in the Dallas area, but because I had those degrees, there was a certain level of respect that I had never had prior. A lot of times we think I can just have the call of God in my life and that's all I need. And while there's some aspect to that that's true, because the Holy Spirit does empower us, and a degree doesn't doesn't really do anything. It just maybe adds proof to it. But while the Holy Spirit can empower us for this, we also have to understand that there's a pattern of training that we see in the Bible where people dedicate themselves behind the scenes. We see it with Jesus for 30 years. We see it with Paul in the desert. We see Paul mentoring Timothy. As a matter of fact, Paul's last letter which is Second Timothy, Paul strictly focuses on one thing with Timothy, and that is to make sure that you are adequately trained, adequately prepared to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Paul really focuses on doctrine, which is his way of saying, Timothy, make sure you are prepared for the churches that you're going to pastor in the future. Education is huge. It's not everything. I understand that, but education is huge. It allows you to, number one, I think it gives you a certain amount of confidence. So when I walk in the room and I'm dealing with a bunch of people, I know that I have the training and the skins on the wall and the education that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, when I'm in the pulpit and I'm rightly handling the word of truth, it's kind of like E.F. Hutton. Remember those old commercials, E.F. Hutton, when E.F. Hutton talks, everybody listens? Well,
Mm-hmm.
when you have those degrees, sometimes when you talk, everybody kind of leans in because they go, that's somebody who has had discipline in their life to study this for their entire life, and they know what they're talking about. I mean, there's just something robust about that. And then not only that, I think education in the pulpit is so critical today. Virgil, I don't know how old you are. I know I'm 48. I think we're probably close to the same age. I have
I'm
no idea.
44. 44.
Okay, so we're right in the same ballpark.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
when we came out of high school and college, the world was not as complex as it is today.
Right.
We're dealing with issues that very little uh, we have had very little experience for. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just the fact that we went through a pandemic alone in 2020. um, I'd never pastored through a pandemic, and you had never pastored through a pandemic. So you have that. You have the issues that we deal with in culture. You have the issues of even some global issues that we're having to face. And if you do not learn how to critically think through those issues, which is what education helps you do, you're going to be lost. And I think the church deserves better than what we're giving them right now. I think the church deserves pastors that are disciplined in education, in study, in theology, and in leadership. And I do think that a pastor that has, you played baseball, a pastor that's a five-tool player, right, is the most effective player on the field. And
Yeah.
education allows you to develop those tools so that there's nothing that comes your way that doesn't really surprise you. You can think through those issues critically, and you can give people a sound biblical theology of the issues that they're facing today.
Yeah, I love that. I think it is true. I think people, no matter what, people are perceptive, and they can
Right.
discern and perceive. This guy knows what he's talking about. This person has invested time in studying the word, has it's time with the Lord. I love that, and I love the heart that you guys have for training up. I can't help but think that Catalyst Bible College is going to become a major hub for people who want to grow deeper in their understanding of the word and theological understanding and principles. And I think that's going to bless the church and strengthen the church. Here's a question, talking about specifically Catalyst Bible College. I mean, you're in it, you're in that culture right now. What are your favorite aspects about CBC? If somebody said right now, Dr. Kennedy, why CBC? What stands out? Why are you so proud of it?
Yeah, so unlike many institutional things, we are a startup, which is exciting. We started a pilot program 2 years ago with 8 students. By the fall, God willing, we will be at 80 students. So that's remarkable growth. But as a startup, you get to kind of explore. So I'm not in that traditional institutional world.
Hmm.
While I have to abide by certain standards that Vanguard asks us to abide by, I can really test things out and go, what's working best? We can be nimble, we can be quick. So I like that. I like the interaction with the students. We have a lot of students here that uh, don't really know what their call is, and seeing that kind of develop over a period of years
Yeah.
is really exciting. I like dealing with students and looking at students and seeing what potential they have, and then also calling out potential in them. A lot of our students, especially in the Valley, uh, Visalia is one of the least educated places in America. And so kids in the Valley come to us and they may be first generation college students, and maybe they've been told by mom and dad this will never work, they'll never make anything out of their life. And seeing that change where all of a sudden they're getting to the edge of graduating and realizing, wow, I'm going to be a college graduate, the first in my family, and I'm going to get to be in ministry when mom and dad didn't think it was possible. Those are things that, man, you just can't put a dollar value on.
Yeah.
It's great being it's that legacy thing, right? Where they're going to look back when they're our age and go, boy, because of Catalyst and Dr. Kennedy and Dr. Merrill and some of our other professors, man, I had success in ministry, and so that's a cool feeling for me. If I can help more and more students get to ministry and fulfill the call of God in their life, man, that's the joy for me.
That's good. That's good. So I have a question, maybe from your experience, because I think your passions and your experience probably have given you a lot of feedback for this question. And this is not about putting anybody down specifically and putting others up, but
Sure.
what are some of the differences that you've seen and noticed in the comparison when there is a significant level of disciplined theological education and study at the pulpit, so to speak, and then in
Hmm.
other scenarios where there's not, because we know, there's a little bit of everything, but what are
Yeah.
some of the major, even coming down to practical examples, or what are the some of the differences that sometimes will be experienced, or the effects that will have on a church and even a community when there is and when there isn't.
Yeah, I think two that come off the top of my head are mission drift and theological drift. And so I think some of the problems we see in culture, in church culture, is a lot of zeal, a lot of zeal. I mean, I watch preachers all the time. My wife says it's a weird habit of mine. I watch them, I study them, I listen to them. There's not a preacher out there in pulpits that doesn't have zeal. I mean, but they lack knowledge. And when they lack knowledge, churches can just drift. They can just start steering off course. And, it's that pilot analogy. If you just get off course of where you've charted just a little bit, by the time you land, you may be in a different state completely. And so I think there's a lot of zeal, a lot of passion, a lot of fervor, but there's not a lot of sound theology. And the reason that's problematic, I've been reading a book called The Critical Journey out of Fuller Seminary, and it's talking about the stages of spiritual development. And they claim there's 6 or 7 stages of spiritual development, and the first 3 stages is when people are the only 3 stages that people get to. So you kind of go through awakening, you go through some light discipleship, you go through a productive stage. Which, when you track churches, that's kind of what they're doing. They're getting people saved, they're giving them a little bit of discipleship, then they're putting them right into ministry. But the fourth stage is what's known as the wall, and the wall is a massive event in your life. It could be a divorce, it could be death, it could be bankruptcy, it could be any number of things. And you can't go around the wall, you can't go above the wall, you have to go through the wall. And what happens is if our pulpit ministry is pretty shallow because our theology is shallow, people only get to stage 3, and then they have a crisis in their life and they don't know what to do with it. And what we're seeing in the church, and I think this is true, I'll give John Mark Comer credit for this because I heard him talk about this, but
Hmm.
I think we have a lot of people deconstructing their faith. And I think the reason they're deconstructing their faith is they spend several years in stage 3 and they hit stage 4 and the church doesn't have any answers. And so they leave the church. And then they start over with something else, and they may start deconstructing and be totally agnostic, and there's an awakening stage, there's a discipleship stage, then they become an evangelist for that, and then they hit the wall there and they do something else.
Hmm.
And so I think when we pastors don't take theology seriously, and I'm somebody who believes that the number one discipleship tool in the church is the pulpit. And when we take that lightly, people hit the wall and they lose hope, they lose faith, they abandon the gospel. And so I think there are some critical implications to that. Now, fervor and zeal are great, but fervor and zeal will take you so far in developing and leading your people. Without sound theological preaching and teaching in the pulpit, you're not going to help people get through that wall where they can get past to stage 5 and 6 and 7, which is like peace and contentment and living a life of love and productivity
Hmm.
beyond what they could ever imagine. And that's really the goal that we're trying to reach when we're developing people. It's for me, pastoring is this. It's not about growing the church, it's about growing the people in the church. And when you grow the people in the church will grow numerically. So I think we just have to be a little bit more serious. We have to match theology with that fervor and zeal, and see how the church springboards into the next decades or so.
I love that. I got a thought as I was hearing you talk, because
Yeah,
I know that on the other side of this podcast, there are all kinds of leaders and pastors and ministry leaders that are listening in. Some might be on the younger side,
yeah,
of this generation. Some might be on the older side, which honestly I think is awesome. I think we need a multi generational leadership within our churches. Here's my question for you, when it comes to
yeah,
this subject, when it comes to theological education. Is it ever too late? Right? Because some people might be like, oh man, I wish somebody would have told me back in the day, but there wasn't a CBC when I was growing up, or
yeah,
and then you have the other side of those young and hungry and ready, passionate young leaders who are ready for something like this. Can you speak to maybe both of those groups, and I
yeah.
know there may be an ideal life circumstance to be part of CBC, but are both of those groups able to benefit from something like Catalyst Bible College?
Yeah, so we're working on number one, we're working on a certificate program and audit program. So there are older ministers who um, may not need the degree. I mean, they may be at 60 years old, looking at retiring in the next 5 to 7 years, and all they want is a little bit more theological education. They're uninterested in the degree. Well, we have answers for that. They can audit courses, they can take our certificate programs, kind of a continuing education program for them. What I would encourage the older pastors to do is to invest in the younger generation. So for me, even pastoring a church at 40, my executive pastor and worship pastor, same guy, wanted to get his degree. And our church invested in that. He had his undergrad. We invested in his master's degree. He got a master's degree in biblical languages. He texted me, I don't know, 6 months ago as he graduated and said, if it wasn't for your investment in me, I never would have done that. So as the older people, the older generation, look for people you can invest in the younger generation to provide education for them. But you can also audit classes with us. For the younger, uh, most younger guys, they are full of zeal. But I want them to understand that ministry is a long, long journey. If you're
Yeah.
in your 20s, uh, you have 40 plus years of ministry ahead of you,
Yeah.
and you do not know what God would have in front of you. So continue to get those degrees. Dr. Chan, I was driving with him a couple months ago, and he asked me about an opportunity. He said, "Would you ever be interested in?" And I immediately said no. I said, "No, I'm not interested in that." And he looked at me, and Dr. Chan said this as I'm driving. He goes, "You know, Jason, that's the problem with you." I'm like, "Oh, well, please tell me what the problem is with me." He said, "You're too quick to say no. You can always say no later on." And he was talking about an opportunity that may come in the next 10 years for me. But he said, "You don't have to say no right now." But the point is in that story is because of my degrees, I've prepared myself for any and every open door. Like if the Lord opens a door, I could be a college president. If the Lord opens the door, I can be a senior pastor. If the Lord
Sure.
opens the door, I could be the dean of theology at a local university. So get education now while you're young, because that education, again, it's not the be all end all, but I do think it's the key to getting open doors in your life. So don't you may have planted a church, and that's awesome, and I'm so happy for you. You may be pastoring right now and think you're going to do it for the next 30 years, but statistics shows that that you're probably going to do something else in life as well. So make sure you have the education to be prepared for those things in the future.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Um, as we're coming to the final stretch, Dr. Kennedy, um, I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts, and after this, we'll tell people how they can find out more about
Yeah.
Catalyst Bible College. But as you look forward, as you and the team look forward, what do you envision in the future of Catalyst Bible College, and why do you think this is important for people to know about?
Yeah, so we're in year two. We're with about 80 students. I could see in the next 5 years us being over 200 with multiple sites around the country, with multiple, 100 plus students going on mission trips and doing practicums and things like that. I see within the next 2 years, 2 to 5 years, us having a placement program where people can reach out and go, "Hey, I need a children's pastor, I need a youth pastor," and we have a graduation class of 50 ready to go into ministry. But I also see that there will be other people who will want to replicate some of this model as well, and we hope so. We hope that more churches and more pastors get serious about training the next generation, because that's what it's going to take. And it's going to take a heavy investment. Visalia First is investing multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to provide scholarships to get this endeavor off the ground. But I believe Catalyst is going to be one of the largest producers of ministry within the Assemblies of God within the next 5 years. And I also believe that we'll be in a few global sites in the next 5 years as well, trying to train pastors and missionaries in places like Sri Lanka or Europe or South America. So we have big plans for the future, and if Jesus tarries, we hope to accomplish those.
It sounds like um, this is definitely a fire in your heart. Um, would you say would you say that there was a point specifically where that fire started to burn for you?
Yeah, I would say probably a little bit before I started pastoring, when I was working in the church plant, and worked with a pastor who had a lot of zeal and a lot of energy and a lot of love for people, but lacked some of those theological chops, and just really encouraged him that, man, if you got your education, think about how much stable the church can be, and how much you can grow the church by growing your people. And so probably around 35, 38. So this has been something that's been burning the last 10 to 12 years of my life.
So good. That's so good. I know there's people that are probably saying, "I want to know more about Catalyst Bible College," and maybe send some people to go check out that information. How
Sure.
can people connect with CBC and find out more about the program?
Yeah, they could go to catalystbible.com, and they can find out all the information there. There's a form they could fill out, an interest form, and if they fill out the interest form in the little box there, the memo note or optional note that we have there, if they'll just put AVAIL on there, that way we can know how they found us. But yeah, catalystbible.com. They could reach out there, or if they want to email me personally, jasonk@catalystbible.com. I would be happy to help them on their educational journey. I have a passion to develop and train and educate ministers. Whether you're 20 or whether you're 60, we want to be able to be your source for that.
That's so good. You guys heard it, everybody. It's catalystbible.com for more information on Catalyst Bible College. I want to mention, we just love resourcing people, and we believe that Catalyst Bible College is not only already doing that, but is going to do that at a much greater scale each and every year. I will mention our AVAIL Journal. Everybody out there, if you're listening or watching, if you don't yet subscribe, you can claim a free trial subscription of the AVAIL Journal by going to availjournal.com. We love putting this journal in leaders' hands, because when you have good resources, it helps you grow in your leadership, it helps you grow in your calling. And as we've been talking about today, it's so important to be resourced and educated and continuously learning. Dr. Kennedy, can you maybe share a final thought? What do you want to leave on everybody's heart today?
Yeah, my thing is just again, take the role of theology seriously as a pastor. Um, we are losing people daily to other things because we're not taking the role of theology seriously. So whether it's taking a certificate course or enrolling in a college or reading a book on theology, do that, and your church will be so blessed if you focus on that. Again, there's a massive role of leadership that we need to do as pastors. I'm both pastor and leader, but I think the pastor has three roles, and that's pastor, leader, theologian. I'll give you one more story before I go. I had lunch one day with Robert Morris. My church was right down the road from Gateway. And I asked Robert Morris, I said, as a senior pastor, what should be my priority? He said, you have a responsibility to lead and to feed. I said, okay, if I was your son, what would you tell me to focus on? He said, if you feed your sheep, they typically self-govern and lead themselves. So that was what I focused on, is feeding the sheep. And I can just tell you, the 7 years that I pastored, I didn't have one major issue within the church, and I attributed that to focusing on good theology in the pulpit. So that's what I'd leave you with.
Very good. Very good. Hey, everybody. I hope you've been taking some notes. I hope you wrote down catalystbible.com. That's where you want to go to get more information. Dr. Jason Kennedy, thank you for taking time to cast some vision, to put some fire in our hearts regarding the importance of Christian education for ministers and pastors and leaders, solid theological foundation. You got me pumped up. I'm excited to go talk about this and share it with people as well. But we just want to say we're proud of you. We're proud of your team, and we're thankful for your leadership.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, Virgil. When I'm in Miami or South Florida, I'll have to look you up and we'll hang out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're so happy to have you. Hey, everybody. Catalyst Bible. That's where we're going to go. Catalystbible.com. Catalyst Bible College. It's a place where leaders are going to be grown. Leaders are going to be prepared with solid theological foundation. Go check them out online. Thanks for leading in with us for another episode of the AVAIL podcast. As always, I'm your host, Virgil Sierra, and we're going to keep digging deeper into this art that we call leadership, and also keep growing in our biblical understanding and theological foundation. We love you, everybody. Catch you next time right here on the AVAIL podcast. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the AVAIL podcast with our guest, Dr. Jason Kennedy. You can find out more about Dr. Kennedy and Catalyst Bible College by going to catalystbible.com. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com. And make sure to claim your free trial subscription of the AVAIL Journal at availjournal.com. As always, I'm your AVAIL podcast host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the AVAIL podcast.